Hey there, this is Rick with the Mercedes Diesel Guy channel. This is my 2005 Toyota Sienna project. Today I'm going to be replacing the roller bearings and center hinge on the passenger side sliding door. So let me just quickly show you why I'm doing it. First off, I'm amazed this still works at all, but I open it, it opens hard, and really kind of have to give it help. This is a power sliding door, and it does sort of work, but not very well. In fact, it was so finicky and it was straining so hard against these bad rollers and hinge that I actually switched off the system. I did not want to burn out the motor or anything like that. Let me get in here handheld with the camera and let me show you some of the problems. Actually, before I go handheld, let me show you this here. There shouldn't be anywhere near that much play here. Now, I've looked at this, and it's not just the rear hinge, which is pretty much shot, but there's definite play at the upper and lower bearings at the front of the door. So, I'm going to be replacing all three of these things today. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open the rear window here, and I'm not going to show you how to do that. If you have one of these vans, you should know how to do it. Now that the window is open, I want to remove this black plastic trim cover right here, because eventually I'm going to need to disconnect the cable. So this is easy to do. Just get under here, preferably with a plastic prying tool so you don't scratch anything up, and you just pry this straight up here at the back. It'll disengage from the clip here, and hopefully you'll catch it before it falls straight to the ground. You can see right here this bit of trim is actually broken on mine, so I may glue this back in place when I get back in here to reassemble everything. But you can see there's two screws right here and right back there that eventually I'm going to have to remove. Now, before I go any further, you can see that I have put a jack stand here down to support the rear of the door, because once I remove the hinge, there's going to be nothing supporting the rear of the door, and I don't want that to crash to the ground, twist the rollers at the front, and cause a lot more damage, let alone damage to the door itself. So now I move in here to the hinge, and there are 5 bolts I need to remove. 3 here actually on the hinge assembly, holding it to the door, and then 2 here holding the cable mechanism to the hinge. So these are 10 millimeter, these are 12 millimeters, so I'm going to go ahead and remove those. I need both hands, so I can't show you removing bolts, and then I'll show you what to do next. Next, I'm going to need to disengage the cable. So there are 2 Torx T30 bolts here and here for the rear of the cable, and there's 2 more on the front. I showed you them before, but I'm just going to show you again going in here to the door jamb. Just going in here with the camera. There's 2 bolts here. In this case, these are not Torx. These look like 10 millimeter. Next, here's where you want to be really careful, and I would recommend watching the video through to completion before you try any of this. So, look at how the cable is routed here. So, this portion of the cable goes towards the back of the vehicle. This portion here goes to the front. Now I have the cable freed from both ends, but eventually when you put it all back together, it's going to have to look like this to work properly. Now, I don't want to play around with doing it any differently. So, I also, with the jack stand, scooted the door outwards from the vehicle a little bit, and I'm actually going to maybe scoot it a little further out. Next, you want to move the hinge here to the rear of the track, and once again, pay attention to the cable routing. And once the hinge hits the rear of the track, it will just come straight out. So now you feed the 2 portions of the cable through the hinge here, and you can remove the hinge. Now, before I install the new hinge, I just wanted to show you a couple of things here. First off, I just want to show you how worn out this is. I'm just wiggling this with my finger, and there is a ton of play in there, which just shouldn't be there. So this is the new hinge here. Now, this is just a hinge I got off of Amazon, and I think this is it's an aftermarket replacement part. I did not get that from Toyota, but it does seem to be a high enough quality replacement. You can see it is painted body color, but that's because I painted it myself. This came unpainted, but I cleaned it up and I got some duplicolor in the correct factory body color, so that is all good. And I'm just going to add a couple of drops of lubricant here just to make sure that this part of the hinge mechanism does move smoothly. And I'm probably also going to add a little bit of grease here to the outer side of the roller bearings. I don't know if there was any on there before, but I figure probably can't hurt. Just use your own best judgment there. So I'm going to just lubricate these things and install the hinge, and that's going to be the reverse of removal, and I'm not going to show you that because I already showed you how to take it out. Okay, so far I've only replaced the center hinge, and the only part I haven't put back on yet is the black plastic trim at the back of the rear window. So I don't know if any of this is going to convey on video, but this already works a lot better. Rolls a lot more smoothly now. Still doesn't seem to be as smooth as it should be, so I'm going to move on and replace the upper bearing here. So I'm looking down from the top of the door here, and here is the top of the top roller bearing. So there are two bolts here holding it onto the door, one here and one here. They are 10 millimeter. And then if you turn around to the other side here, there is a... Okay, so those two 10 millimeter bolts are out, and this assembly is out of the way. Light finger pressure, that's easy. So you got two choices here. You can actually remove these two bolts holding it to the door, or you can go underneath and remove these two bolts up here. Now, I know from the new bearing I have, you can loosen these and adjust the door in or out a little bit. So this is really more meant for, these two are really more meant for adjustment, but like I said, I suppose you could just remove this portion here, but I'm going to remove the whole thing, which is just these two bolts at the top. Before I do that, I am once again going to place my jack stand here under the front of the door, just to make sure that the door does not drop down. So once you have the bolts out, the door will want to pull away from the body a bit, so that's a good reason to have that jack stand down there. And then you just slide the bearing out of the track. Okay, so here it is against the brand new one, which I have already painted in body color. And you can see here the, just gonna flip these two over. I still have these two bolts loose because I separated these two pieces to paint them. And flip them back over again. And you can see that they're not quite adjusted the same. So what I'm going to do right here is, I guess, do my best to eyeball this and get the adjustment about the same. And then put a little bit of grease here on the bearing, because it looks like maybe there was some grease on the old one, and install the new one. So I think maybe the top bearing was fine. I'm going to save this for a spare part. Okay, with the top replaced, there does seem to be a little bit more improvement. So now I'm going to move on to the final piece, which is the bottom. Now, I'm not sure exactly what this piece is. I really don't know how the cable drive works yet. I don't know if this is part of it or if that's just the part up top on the hinge. But there are two 10 millimeter bolts, one here, one here. That should remove this part. And then we can remove the actual roller bearing itself. Okay, so those two 10 millimeter bolts are out, and this assembly is out of the way. So you could remove the whole door panel, and there's going to be 3 bolts to remove this whole bracket. 1, 2, 3. You can see this is the new piece I bought, and I've painted it body color. But in order to replace this whole piece, I would have to remove the whole door panel. The other choice I have is just to replace the the bearing portion here down by the adjuster, and I think in this case that's going to be my path of least resistance. So I'm going to remove on the van this bolt here and this bolt here, and then I should be able to slide the old roller assembly out of place. Before I do that, I am once again going to place my jack stand here under the front of the door, just to make sure that the door does not drop down. And then once you have the sill plate out of the way, you're going to want to remove this cable guide here, and I'm seeing one 10mm bolt, so I'm going to remove that. Once you lift this cable guide out of the way, there's a stop right here at the end of the roller track, and you can see I've already loosened one of the nuts. There's two 10mm nuts holding this on, so I'm going to remove these bolts. And once those nuts are removed, you should be able to remove the rear roller stop, which is this piece right here. Then you can slide the roller back off the track and remove it. And then once again, I know, I'm sorry, this is not really easy to see, so I'm gonna work with both hands and get this out. Okay, full disclosure, I'm actually not sure if you need to remove that that piece right there, but it's easy to do so. Basically at the end I removed that and it was still hitting another piece on the end of the track, so what I did was I just lifted here at the back, pivoted the roller like that, and pulled it straight out. So that worked for me. And now I'm just going to compare this up against the new roller piece. Okay, so I'm working with a brand new Toyota factory part here, and it's really hard to tell if there's any sort of wear that's causing a problem here with the roller bearing assembly. I kind of held these two right up against each other, and it looks like all three of these roller bearings are worn down a bit, but I'm not seeing anything that really should indicate very poor performance, so it may be a case where I just bought a really expensive part that didn't as much need to be replaced. I mean, so far the only thing that really looked like it needed to be replaced was that hinge. So I'm going to grease up this bearing, install the new assembly, put everything back the way it was, and give this one more test. So once again, reassembly is the reverse of disassembly, and should just take me a few minutes. Okay, so I have the new roller assembly in place, and in order to preserve the adjustment I had before, you can see how I have the bolts loosely threaded in, but you can see where the bolt here does not match up with where it was painted before. I'm going to make sure these do match up when I actually tighten them down. So in theory that should preserve the alignment of the bearing and the bracket and everything. So I hope that was helpful. If you want, hit the like and subscribe buttons. Those always help. So thanks for watching. It's better than it did when I started the job today. So the door's rolling pretty smoothly now. Not as smoothly as it does on the driver's side, but it's way better. I haven't put down the, I don't know if you can see, I have not put down the trim on the floor yet. I just wanted to make sure this is all working properly. So I hope that was helpful. If you want, hit the like and subscribe buttons. Those always help. So thanks for watching.